The 2,000-year-old secret hidden in the Last Supper. Chapter 1, The Discovery. Dr. Helena Rossi never imagined that a simple restoration would change her life forever. As an expert in Renaissance art, she had been called to the monastery of Santa Maria del Grazie in Milan to examine some cracks that had appeared in Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting, The Last Supper. It was a cold October morning when Helena arrived at the convent's refectory. The light filtering through the windows softly illuminated the masterpiece that occupied the entire north wall. Over 500 years ago, this painting had witnessed countless generations, wars, restorations, and mysteries. Dr. Rossi, thank you very much for coming, said Father Antonio, the monastery's guardian, an elderly man with a gray beard and kind eyes. The cracks appeared last week, shortly after the last heavy rain. We are worried. Helena put on her magnifying glasses and approached the painting. Her experienced hands delicately ran over the surface, looking for signs of deterioration. It was then that something caught her eye. In the area where the Apostle John was painted, there was a small irregularity in the paint that she had never noticed before. Father Antonio, how long has it been since this painting underwent detailed analysis with modern equipment? Helena asked, intrigued. Well, the last major restoration was over 20 years ago. Why do you ask? Helena didn't answer immediately. She was focused on something her trained eyes had detected. There seemed to be an additional layer of paint in a specific area, as if Leonardo had painted something and then covered it with another image. I need to bring some special equipment tomorrow, she said finally. There is something here that deserves further investigation. Chapter 2, Equipment Reveals Secrets. The next day Helena returned with a small, discreet team. They brought with them a portable X-ray scanner and spectroscopic analysis equipment, technologies that could see through the layers of paint without damaging the work. What exactly are you looking for? Father Antonio asked, curious but concerned. Hidden images, Helena replied, adjusting the equipment. Leonardo da Vinci was known for making changes to his paintings during the creative process. Sometimes he covered certain images with others. It's possible there is something underneath the current painting. The first scan revealed exactly what Helena suspected. In the lower layers of paint, where the Apostle John was now painted, there were different outlines, as if there had originally been a completely different figure. Incredible, murmured Dr. Marco Santini, an art analysis specialist who accompanied Helena. Look at these lines here. They definitely don't match the current figure. Helena studied the images on the computer monitor. The lines revealed by the X-rays showed what appeared to be a female figure, with long hair and delicate features. Even more intriguing, this figure seemed to be in a prominent position in the original composition. That can't be possible, Father Antonio murmured, looking over Helena's shoulder. Tradition has always held that all 12 apostles were men. Tradition may be wrong, Helena replied softly. Or perhaps Leonardo knew something that was deliberately hidden. Chapter 3, The Search for Evidence. In the following days, Helena plunged into frantic research. She visited the Ambrosian Library in Milan, where many of Leonardo da Vinci's personal manuscripts were kept. There were hundreds of pages of notes, drawings, and preparatory studies that the master had made throughout his life. It was in a notebook dated 1495, just 2 years before Leonardo began the Last Supper, that Helena found something extraordinary. Among the anatomical drawings and engineering studies, there was a sketch that took her breath away. The drawing clearly showed a woman seated at a table next to Jesus Christ. The figure had long hair, a serene face, and was dressed simply but dignified. In the margins of the paper, Leonardo had written in his characteristic mirrored script, "The beloved disciple, the first witness, the one who understood." Marco, you have to see this, Helena called, her voice trembling with emotion. Dr. Santini approached and examined the drawing carefully. If this is authentic, we are facing a discovery that could change the history of Christianity. There is more, Helena said, turning the pages of the manuscript. Look here. There were other notes, all in code or mirrored writing, as was typical of Leonardo. Patiently, Helena began to decipher them. Words like Magdalene, first apostle, and witness to the resurrection appeared repeatedly. Chapter 4, The Weight of History. Helena knew she was treading on dangerous ground. For 2,000 years, the Church had maintained that the 12 apostles were all men. The idea that a woman could have played such a central role in Jesus' last meal was revolutionary and potentially explosive. We need to be very careful, said Dr. Santini. If this becomes public without proper context, it could cause a huge uproar. But we can't simply ignore what we've discovered, Helena replied. If Leonardo truly knew something and was then forced to hide it, that is part of the history of art and religion. Father Antonio had been surprisingly open to the discovery. Doctor, he said during one of their conversations in the refectory, I've always been intrigued by how Leonardo depicted John in this painting. The figure is very delicate, almost feminine. Perhaps the master was trying to preserve a truth in some way. Helena continued her research, now focusing on historical documents from Leonardo's time. She discovered that the artist had access to ancient manuscripts through his patrons, including texts that were later deemed heretical by the church. In a letter dated 1497, she found a crucial clue. Leonardo wrote to a close friend, "The truth about that sacred night is richer than we have been taught. The feminine presence of the divine cannot be erased from history, even if they try to bury it under layers of tradition." Chapter 5. The Secret Revealed. After weeks of meticulous research, Helena began to piece together the puzzle. From the documents and analysis of the painting, it became clear that Leonardo da Vinci had originally painted Mary Magdalene as one of the participants in the Last Supper, positioned in a place of honor next to Jesus. But why did he change it? Dr. Santini asked during one of their analysis sessions. Pressure, Helena replied. Look at the dates. He began the painting in 1495 but only finished it in 1498. During these 3 years the church was undergoing internal reforms. There was growing pressure to eliminate any reference to the role of women in early Christian leadership. Helena had found evidence that Leonardo was visited several times by ecclesiastical authorities during the creation of the work. Apparently, they were dissatisfied with certain artistic choices made by the master. So he was forced to paint over Mary Magdalene and replace her with the figure of John, Father Antonio asked. Exactly. But look how clever he was, Helena said, pointing to details in the current painting. Even transforming Mary Magdalene into John, he preserved many of her feminine characteristics. The long hair, the delicate face, the position close to Jesus. It's as if he were saying, you can force me to change the image but you can't change the truth. Chapter 6. Other Discoveries. The discovery led Helena to investigate other works by Leonardo. In the Solvitur Mundi, she found symbols that seemed to reference the sacred feminine. In the Mona Lisa, she discovered proportions and symbolism that suggested a special reverence for feminine wisdom. Leonardo was a man ahead of his time, Helena explained in her notes. He believed that spiritual truth transcended the limitations imposed by human institutions. Dr. Santini had specialized in analyzing ancient documents and discovered something fascinating in the Vatican archives. There were records of a doctrinal correction requested of Leonardo da Vinci in 1497, precisely during the period he was working on the Last Supper. They wanted him to remove inappropriate elements from the representation, Santini read from an official document. The language is quite direct. The female presence at the sacred table does not conform to orthodox teachings. Chapter 7. The Silent Resistance. Helena discovered that Leonardo was not the only artist to face this kind of pressure. Many painters of the time had been instructed to modify their religious representations to conform to official church doctrine. But Leonardo was especially astute, Helena observed. Rather than simply obeying, he found a way to preserve the essence of his original vision. Spectroscopic analysis revealed more surprising details. In the lower layers of the painting, Mary Magdalene was positioned not just as a participant, but as someone in deep communication with Jesus. Her hands were extended toward him, and symbols surrounded her that suggested a special role in the transmission of the teachings. It's as if Leonardo were portraying her as the beloved disciple mentioned in the Gospels, said Father Antonio, who had become an unexpected ally in the research. Exactly, Helena confirmed. And it makes sense historically. Mary Magdalene was indeed a central figure in early Christianity. It was she who first witnessed Jesus' resurrection. It was natural that she would be present at the Last Supper. Chapter 8. The Impact of the Discovery. As the research progressed, Helena realized she was dealing with something much greater than a simple artistic discovery. She was unearthing a truth that had been deliberately hidden for centuries. The question is not whether or not Mary Magdalene was at the Last Supper, Helena explained in a conversation with her colleagues. The question is why her presence was systematically erased from official history. Dr. Santini had found evidence that this historical revision was part of a larger effort by the Church to diminish the role of women in early Christianity. They rewrote the narrative to fit the patriarchal structures of the time, he noted. Father Antonio, initially hesitant, had become an advocate for the research. If our faith is true, he said, then it can support historical truth. Hiding facts does not strengthen religion, it weakens it. Chapter 9. The Decision. Helena now faced a difficult decision. Should she make her discovery public or keep it secret? She knew the revelation could spark great controversy, but it could also contribute to a more complete understanding of the history of Christianity. Leonardo hid this truth for 500 years, she told herself, contemplating the painting. Perhaps it was time to bring it to light. She decided to proceed cautiously. First, she would meticulously document all the evidence. Then she would present her findings to a select group of experts in art and religious history. Only after an academic consensus would she consider wider dissemination. The truth must be revealed gradually, Helena decided, with respect for both history and the people it might affect. Chapter 10. Leonardo's Legacy. Months later, Helena quietly published her research in a specialized academic journal. The article, titled Hidden Layers in the Last Supper, a technical analysis of Leonardo da Vinci's modifications, presented the evidence scientifically and respectfully. The response was mixed. Some scholars celebrated the discovery as a significant advance in the understanding of Leonardo's work. Others questioned the interpretations. But all agreed that the physical evidence was indisputable. There was indeed a female figure painted beneath the current image of John. What impresses me most, Helena said in a later interview, is not the fact that Leonardo originally included a woman in the scene. What impresses me is his courage in somehow preserving this truth, even when he was forced to hide it. Father Antonio became a champion of the discovery. Our faith is not threatened by a fuller understanding of history, he said in a sermon. If Jesus truly included women among his closest followers, it only makes his message of love and equality more powerful. Epilogue, Truth Through Time. Today, visitors to the monastery of Santa Maria del Grazie can see the Last Supper with new eyes. Knowing the hidden history behind the painting, many pay special attention to the delicate figure of John, seeing in him not only an apostle but also a testament to Leonardo's struggle to preserve a broader truth. Helena continues her research, now focusing on other Renaissance works of art that may contain similar truths. Leonardo was not the only artist of his time to deal with these pressures, she explains. There is likely much more hidden history waiting to be discovered. The discovery changed the way many people view both art and religious history. It demonstrated that truth can be preserved in unexpected ways and that even under pressure, courageous artists find ways to keep authenticity alive. Leonardo's secret wasn't just about a painting, Helena reflects. It was about the persistence of truth through the centuries. For 2,000 years, this story remained hidden, but truth has its own strength. It always finds a way to come to light. The Last Supper remains one of the most famous paintings in the world, but now it carries an even deeper meaning. It bears witness not only to Jesus' last meal with his disciples, but also to the constant struggle between historical truth and institutional power. And perhaps this is the most important lesson of Helena's discovery, that true art always finds a way to preserve what is essential, even when circumstances conspire against it. Leonardo da Vinci, 500 years later, finally had his full message revealed to the world. The delicate figure he was forced to transform from Mary Magdalene into John remains there, on the refectory wall, as a silent reminder that truth, no matter how hidden, always finds a way to survive through time. If you enjoyed this story, like it and subscribe to the channel so we can create more stories like these.